The vast crystal dome of the Galactic Assembly stretched above Commander Sarah Chen like a frozen aurora, its perfectly engineered surfaces reflecting the light of 3 suns. She straightened her unmodified Earth uniform, aware of the disapproving glances from the assembled Axiom delegates. Their biomechanically enhanced bodies gleamed with an unnatural perfection that made her own natural form seem crude by comparison. Commander Chen, High Counselor Vexra's voice carried artificial harmonics designed to command attention. How gracious of Earth to send such an authentic representative. The word authentic dripped with carefully modulated disdain. Sarah met the counselor's augmented gaze without flinching. Where the Axiom saw imperfection in her unaltered brown eyes and natural features, she saw strength in remaining true to human nature. Earth believes in authentic dialogue, Counselor. We find it produces more genuine results. The assembled Axiom delegates shifted, their biomechanical enhancements humming in synchronized disapproval. Sarah had studied their species extensively before accepting this assignment. Once humanoid, the Axiom had spent centuries pursuing what they called evolutionary acceleration, genetic and cybernetic modifications aimed at achieving biological perfection. We have reviewed Earth's petition to join the Galactic Assembly, Vexra continued, silver-threaded tendrils writhing around their perfectly symmetrical face. However, we find your species' resistance to improvement concerning. Sarah maintained her diplomatic smile, though her hands clenched behind her back. With respect, Counselor, humanity doesn't view genetic diversity as a flaw to be corrected. Our adaptability is our strength. Adaptability? Another delegate scoffed, their voice modulated to express perfect derision. Your species still succumbs to illness, ages, dies. How can you claim strength in such weakness? Because through those challenges we grow, Sarah responded, her voice carrying naturally across the chamber. We learn, we overcome, not by erasing our nature, but by embracing it. The chamber erupted in murmurs, the Axiom's enhanced voices creating an otherworldly chorus of disapproval. But Sarah noticed something else, a flicker of interest from a figure partially hidden in the shadows of the chamber. Unlike the others, this Axiom's biomechanical enhancements seemed less extensive, almost subtle. Vexra raised a perfectly crafted hand for silence. Commander Chen, surely you understand that certain standards must be maintained. The Assembly cannot risk contamination of our carefully cultivated genetic prosperity. Interesting choice of words, Counselor, Sarah said, taking a calculated risk. Cultivation usually implies careful breeding, selective pressure. Tell me, how many generations can such selective pressure continue before the law of diminishing returns takes effect? The hidden figure stepped forward slightly, and Sarah caught a glimpse of features that seemed almost natural compared to the other delegates. Their eyes met briefly, and Sarah saw something she hadn't expected in an Axiom, doubt. You overstep, Commander. Vexra's harmonics took on a dangerous edge. Perhaps this is why your species remains unsuitable for Assembly membership. You lack the vision to see perfection, let alone achieve it. Or perhaps, Sarah countered, we see something you've forgotten. The power of imperfection, the strength in diversity, the ability to adapt not because we're engineered to, but because it's in our nature. The chamber fell silent, but Sarah could feel the tension building like a storm about to break. She had challenged not just their politics, but their entire worldview. Yet that mysterious figure in the shadows had moved closer still, and now Sarah could see others, Axiom delegates with fewer enhancements, watching her with what looked like hope. You will regret this defiance, Vexra stated, their perfect features arranged in an expression of contempt. Earth's petition is denied. Furthermore, we recommend quarantine protocols to prevent your genetic contamination from spreading. Contamination. Sarah allowed herself a small laugh. Counselor, you might want to check your own genetic diversity indices before throwing around such accusations. How many generations of perfect breeding before the cracks start to show? The hidden figure suddenly stepped into full view, causing gasps among the delegates. Their features were almost entirely natural, save for minimal neural enhancements. "The human speaks truth we have long denied," they announced, their voice carrying natural imperfections that made it all the more powerful. Sarah recognized them now. Dr. Axis Venn, the Axiom's leading geneticist. The one whose research papers had mysteriously stopped appearing in scientific archives a year ago. "This session is concluded," Vextra announced hurriedly, but Sarah could see the damage was done. Seeds of doubt had been planted, and in the perfectly ordered garden of Axiom society, such wild growth could not easily be contained. As the chamber emptied, Dr. Venn approached her. "Commander Chen, we need to talk. There are things about our perfection that the Assembly doesn't want anyone to know." Sarah nodded, understanding that her real mission was just beginning. Sometimes the greatest achievements came not from reaching perfection, but from having the courage to embrace imperfection. And as she followed Dr. Venn into the shadows of the great chamber, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity's greatest strength might just be their refusal to be perfect. Dr. Venn's laboratory lay deep beneath the crystal spires of the Axiom capital, far from the pretense of perfection that ruled the surface. Sarah followed him through corridors that grew progressively less polished, less perfect. The subtle imperfections felt almost welcoming after the sterile symmetry above. "They'll be watching us now," Venn said, his natural voice a stark contrast to the artificial harmonics Sarah had grown used to. "The High Council doesn't like their secrets questioned." The laboratory doors opened to reveal a sight that made Sarah gasp. Dozens of young Axiom worked at various stations, all of them displaying minimal enhancements. Some even appeared completely natural, their features showing the beautiful flaws the Council worked so hard to eliminate. "Welcome to the Resistance," Venn said with a slight smile, "though we prefer to call ourselves the Naturalists." Sarah walked among the workstations, noting the complex genetic sequences displayed on screens. "You're studying genetic diversity." "We're studying survival," a young Axiom woman approached, her unenhanced features striking in their naturalness. "I'm Maya, Dr. Venn's daughter." "The one they tried to force into optimization when she came of age," Venn added, pride and pain mixing in his voice. "She refused, even when they threatened to exile her from society." Sarah studied the data flowing across the screens. "These are degradation patterns. Your species is losing genetic stability." With each generation of improvement, Maya confirmed, pulling up more detailed charts. "The Council's perfect vision is leading us toward extinction. Each new enhancement reduces our genetic diversity further. We're painting ourselves into a corner, and the paint is our own engineered DNA." "But they must see the data," Sarah argued, then stopped as understanding dawned. "Unless they're hiding it." Venn nodded grimly. "Why do you think my research suddenly disappeared from public archives? The Council would rather lead us to extinction than admit their perfect vision is flawed." A sudden alarm blared through the laboratory. Maya rushed to a security console. "We've got incoming. Council security forces." "They moved faster than I expected," Venn muttered. "Commander Chen, I hope you're ready to put Earth's diplomatic immunity to the test." The laboratory doors burst open, revealing a squad of enhanced Axiom guards, their biomechanical armor gleaming. Leading them was Councillor Vexera himself, his perfect features twisted with disgust. "Dr. Venn, your aberrant research ends today," Vexera announced, his artificial harmonics grating against Sarah's ears. "And Commander Chen, involving yourself in domestic matters violates your diplomatic status." Sarah stepped forward, placing herself between the guards and the researchers. "Interesting definition of domestic matters, Counselor. From where I stand, this looks more like genocide through enforced genetic manipulation." "Genocide." Vexera laughed, the sound perfectly modulated to convey contempt. "We are perfecting our species. You're killing it." Maya shot back, standing beside Sarah. "Each generation more sterile than the last, more dependent on artificial means to reproduce." How many viable births were there in the last cycle, counselor? How many of your perfect children can naturally continue our species? The guards shifted uncomfortably, and Sarah noticed something fascinating. Beneath their enhancement, doubt flickered across their faces. The truth was affecting them, perfect conditioning or not. Commander Chen, Vexra's voice took on a dangerous edge. This is your final warning. Leave now, and we'll overlook this transgression. Sarah pulled out her communicator, making sure everyone could see as she activated it. Actually, counselor, I think it's time we had a larger audience for this discussion. She smiled as Vexra's perfect features showed a very imperfect flash of fear. You see, everything since I entered this lab has been transmitted directly to Earth's embassy, including some very interesting genetic data about your species' viability crisis. You wouldn't dare risk interstellar incident, Vexra hissed. No, humanity has a rather strong opinion about forced genetic manipulation. Historical precedent, you might say. How do you think the assembly would react to learning you're essentially sterilizing your own people in pursuit of aesthetic perfection? The laboratory fell silent except for the hum of equipment and the subtle whir of biomechanical enhancements. Then one of the guards stepped forward, reaching up to disengage his facial enhancements. The artificial plating retracted, revealing natural features beneath. My sister, he said, his voice rough with natural emotion, she died last cycle. They said it was a failed enhancement integration, but it was genetic collapse, then finished gently, like so many others. More guards began disengaging their enhancements, years of suppressed doubt finally finding expression. Vexra backed away, his perfect features contorting with very imperfect rage. This isn't over, he snarled, turning to leave. The council will not allow this contamination to spread. No, Sarah called after him, but nature will. That's what nature does. It spreads, it adapts, it survives. Not through perfection, but through diversity. After Vexra fled, Sarah turned to find Maya and Ven grinning at her. Was the transmission real? Maya asked. Of course, Sarah smiled. Earth's embassy has everything, and in about an hour, so will every independent news network in the assembly. Sometimes the best way to fight perfection is with pure, messy truth. As the laboratory erupted in celebration, Sarah watched the former guards mingling with the researchers, their natural faces showing real emotion for the first time in years. Sometimes the strongest rebellion wasn't fought with weapons, but with the simple courage to be imperfect in a world demanding perfection. And as she caught Maya's eye across the room, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Axiom would either learn to embrace their natural diversity, or their pursuit of perfection would be their end. Either way, humanity would be there to remind them that true strength lay not in perfection, but in the beautiful flaws that made each species unique. In the days following the laboratory confrontation, Sarah found herself at the heart of a growing movement. The Naturalists' underground network had expanded rapidly, with more Axiom choosing to disengage their enhancements and embrace their natural forms. But with change came danger, and the Council's response was swift and brutal. Another raid, Maya reported, bursting into Sarah's temporary office in the Earth Embassy. They're targeting medical facilities now, forcing emergency optimizations on anyone showing signs of genetic regression. Sarah studied the holographic map showing the spread of council enforcement actions across the city. They're desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. People are dying. Maya's natural features showed raw emotion, something rare even among the naturalists. The forced optimizations are causing catastrophic failures in those with unstable genetic sequences. Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Ven rushed in, his face pale. We found it, the original source, the reason for everything. He placed a data crystal on Sarah's desk, his hands shaking slightly. The crystal projected a complex genetic sequence, rotating slowly in the air between them. This is the original Axiom genome, Ven explained, before any modifications. And this, he added another crystal, is what we became. The images merged, showing devastating changes. What had once been a robust, adaptable genetic structure had been stripped down, optimized until it barely functioned. "We didn't just modify ourselves," Maya whispered, horror dawning in her eyes. "We lobotomized our own DNA." Sarah leaned forward, studying the sequence. "These markers here, they're not just about physical appearance, are they?" "No," Ven confirmed grimly. "The Council's improvements targeted everything that made us adaptable. Emotions, creativity, even our ability to question their decisions. They tried to engineer perfect obedience along with perfect bodies." A distant explosion rocked the embassy, making the holograms flicker. Sarah's security console lit up with alerts. "They're here," she announced, quickly copying the genetic data to secure servers. "The Council's not waiting anymore." "Commander Chen." Councillor Vexera's artificially amplified voice boomed through the building's communications system. "Your diplomatic status is revoked. Surrender the genetic criminals, and Earth may yet avoid sanctions." Sarah smiled grimly, activating the embassy's defense protocols. "Funny thing about humans, Councillor. We have this annoying habit of fighting lost causes." "Get to the lab," she told Ven and Maya. "Start the procedure. I'll hold them here as long as I can." Maya grabbed her arm. "The procedure isn't tested. We don't know if genetic reversion is even possible." "We know staying as we are means extinction," Ven said quietly. "Sometimes survival requires a leap of faith." The embassy's walls shimmered as Council forces attempted to breach the diplomatic shields. Sarah pushed them toward the secret passage to the laboratory. "Go. If this works, the Council loses everything. Their perfect society, their control, their lie about improvement being the only way forward." As Maya and Ven disappeared into the passage, Sarah settled behind her desk, opening a channel to Earth Command. She needed to buy time, and there was nothing humans did better than being diplomatically inconvenient. The shields finally fell, and enhanced Council guards poured into her office, led by Vexera himself. His perfect features were marred by very imperfect rage. "Where are they?" he demanded, artificial harmonics crackling with fury. Sarah leaned back in her chair, the picture of diplomatic calm. "Interesting question, Councillor. But I have a better one. How many of your guards know they're dying?" The guards shifted uneasily, their enhanced bodies suddenly feeling less like improvements and more like prisons. "She lies," Vexera snapped, but doubt had already taken root. "Do I?" Sarah stood slowly, addressing the guards directly. "Haven't you noticed how each generation of your children is weaker? How many of your enhanced brothers and sisters have mysteriously disappeared when their bodies rejected the optimizations? The Council isn't perfecting you. They're killing you, one enhancement at a time." "Enough." Vexera raised his weapon, but several guards stepped between him and Sarah. "Is it true?" one asked, his artificial voice wavering. "Are we dying?" Deep beneath them, something hummed to life. Sarah felt the subtle vibration through her feet and smiled. "Why did you ask your own DNA?" The laboratory's genetic pulse swept through the building, a carefully engineered wave of activation signals designed to wake up dormant genetic sequences. The guards staggered as their bodies responded, generations of suppressed genetic code suddenly reawakening. Vexera screamed as his perfect features began to shift, returning to natural patterns hidden beneath layers of enhancement. Around him, guards watched in amazement as their bodies began rejecting artificial modifications, revealing the true axiom forms beneath. "What have you done?" Vexera gasped, his harmonics failing, leaving only his natural voice. "We didn't do anything," Maya's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, unchanged, while behind her, Dr. Ven's features had softened into something more natural. "We just reminded your bodies who they really are." "The pulse will spread through the city," Ven explained, his voice full of emotion. "Every axiom will have a choice: maintain their enhancements through constant medical intervention, or allow their natural genetics to reassert themselves." "You can't do this." Vextra tried to activate his emergency beacon, but his enhancements were already failing. The assembly will. Will what? Sarah interrupted. Learn that the great axiom achievement of perfection was built on a genetic time bomb. That you've been sterilizing your own people in the name of aesthetic improvement. The guards had lowered their weapons, many of them touching their changing faces with expressions of wonder. Generations of rigid control were literally melting away, revealing the beautiful diversity that had been hidden beneath. Change is scary, Sarah said softly. But extinction, that's scarier. Your people can choose now, real choice, not the illusion of it. They can embrace their natural strength or cling to artificial perfection until there's nothing left. As if to emphasize her point, distant cheering could be heard from the streets below. The pulse was spreading, and with it, the truth that had been buried under centuries of manufactured perfection. Maya stepped forward, offering her hand to the nearest guard. Come with us. Let us show you who you really are. One by one, the guards followed, leaving Vextra alone with his failing perfection. Sarah watched him struggle to maintain his enhanced form and felt a moment of pity. It's not too late, she told him. Even for you. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we were wrong. She left him there, surrounded by the ruins of his perfect world, and went to help guide the Axiom through their first steps into a beautifully imperfect future. The genetic pulse had transformed the Axiom capital into chaos. Beautiful, unpredictable chaos. Sarah watched from the embassy's observation deck as thousands of citizens filled the streets below, their bodies in various stages of transformation. Some fought against the changes, desperately clinging to their enhancements, while others embraced their emerging natural forms with joy and wonder. Reports from the outer colonies are coming in, Maya announced, joining Sarah at the window. Her natural features glowed with excitement. The pulse is spreading faster than we anticipated. The Council's communication blackout failed. Hard to control information when your control systems are rejecting their own programming, Sarah smiled. But her smile faded as emergency sirens began wailing across the city. What's happening? Dr. Venn burst into the room, his face grave. The Council's launched their contingency plan. They're activating the Genesis Protocol. The what? Sarah demanded, but her question was answered by a massive hologram appearing in the sky above the city. Councillor Vexra's face, still artificially perfect despite the pulse, loomed over them. Citizens of the Axiom Empire, his voice boomed, you have been infected by human contamination. The genetic pulse is not liberation, it is an attack on our very way of life. But we prepare for such treachery. The hologram shifted, showing massive facilities hidden beneath the city. The Genesis Protocol will cleanse our species. Mandatory optimization chambers have been activated across the Empire. Those who submit willingly will be saved. Those who resist. He's insane, Maya whispered. Forced optimization at this scale, the genetic shock would kill millions. Sarah was already moving. Get me Earth Command now, and patch me into whatever communication networks are still functioning. Venn worked frantically at the communication console while Maya coordinated with naturalist cells across the city. Within minutes, Sarah faced her own hologram projection, addressing the panicked population. People of the Axiom Empire, I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. The Council is lying to you. The Genesis Protocol isn't salvation, it's genocide. Your bodies are rejecting artificial enhancement because they're fighting to survive. She gestured, and then projected the genetic data they discovered. This is your true heritage. The Council didn't perfect your species, they crippled it. Each enhancement stripped away your ability to adapt, to evolve, to survive. The pulse isn't an attack, it's your own DNA fighting back. Across the city, crowds stopped their panic, looking up at the competing messages in the sky. Sarah could see the moment of choice rippling through them, trust in the artificial perfection that had ruled them for generations, or embrace the uncertain freedom of their natural forms. They're mobilizing enforcement units, Maya reported tensely. moving to herd people toward the optimization chambers. Sarah gritted her teeth. "Where's Earth Command?" "Communications are being jammed," Ven answered. "The Council still controls the orbital platforms." A squad of enhanced soldiers approached a group of transforming citizens, weapons raised. Sarah held her breath, expecting violence. But then something extraordinary happened. One of the soldiers removed his helmet, revealing features shifting between enhanced and natural. "No," he said simply. "No more." More soldiers followed his lead, their weapons lowering. The rebellion of imperfection was spreading through even the Council's most loyal forces. "The optimization chambers are powering up." Maya's voice was urgent. "If they manage to force even a fraction of the population in..." "Then we give them a better choice," Sarah interrupted. She turned to Ven. "The pulse, can you modify it? Make it stronger." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You want to overload the chambers." "Better than that," Sarah grinned. "I want to give every citizen the power to choose. No more gradual transformation. One massive pulse that either fully reverts their genetics or leaves them enhanced. Their choice, their consequences, right now." The power requirements would be enormous, Maya calculated quickly. "We'd need..." "The optimization chambers," Ven finished. "Their power systems, if we could reverse the flow." Sarah was already moving. "Maya, get our people into position around the chamber facilities. Ven, make the modifications. I'm going to have a chat with Councillor Vexera." "That's suicide," Maya protested. "The Council chamber is the most heavily defended." "Good thing I'm still technically a diplomatic representative," Sarah winked. "Time to be diplomatically inconvenient one last time." The journey to the Council chamber was surprisingly easy. Most of the security forces were either transforming or helping others through the process. Those who tried to stop her found themselves facing their own troops in various stages of genetic reversion. She found Vexera in the Grand Chamber, surrounded by medical equipment, trying desperately to maintain his perfect form. The other council members were conspicuously absent. "Enjoying the view?" Sarah asked, gesturing to the chaos visible through the crystal dome above. "It's quite something, watching a species remember who they really are." "You've destroyed everything," Vexera snarled, his harmonics glitching. "Centuries of progress, undone by primitive human interference." "Progress?" Sarah laughed. "You turned your entire species into an evolutionary dead end. But hey, at least you looked perfect while doing it." Her communicator chimed. Ven and Maya were in position. The modified pulse was ready. "Last chance, Counselor," Sarah offered genuinely. "Order the chambers shut down. Let your people choose their own path." "Choose weakness, imperfection, never." "Funny thing about imperfection," Sarah smiled, activating her communicator. "It tends to survive." The modified pulse hit like a tidal wave of genetic information. Even through the chamber's shielding, Sarah felt it resonate in her bones. Above them, the crystal dome amplified the effect, sending it cascading across the city in a visible wave of energy. Vexera screamed as his enhancements failed completely, decades of artificial perfection stripped away in seconds. Sarah watched with fascination as his true form emerged. Not ugly, not perfect, just uniquely, naturally axiom. Throughout the city, citizens faced the same instant choice: fight the pulse and maintain their enhancements through sheer will, or let go and embrace their natural genetics. The optimization chambers, their power reversed, overloaded in spectacular bursts of energy that painted the sky with aurora-like lights. When it was over, Sarah looked out over a transformed city. Some citizens remained enhanced, their choice made clear. But many more stood in their natural forms, experiencing true genetic freedom for the first time in generations. "What have you done?" Vexera whispered, staring at his reflected natural features in the crystal walls. "I didn't do anything," Sarah corrected gently. "Your people did this. They chose. Some chose to stay as they were, others chose to change. But for the first time in centuries, it was their choice." She helped him to his feet, noting how he struggled to balance without his enhancements. The real question, counselor, is what will you choose now? Keep fighting for a perfection that's killing your species, or help lead them into a future that embraces diversity? Beyond the crystal dome, the first natural sunrise in centuries painted the sky in imperfect, beautiful colors, and in its light, the Axiom people began the long, messy, wonderful process of rediscovering who they truly were. The weeks following the Great Pulse, as people had begun calling it, brought changes no one could have predicted. The Axiom capital had become a fascinating blend of natural and enhanced citizens, each group learning to coexist with the other. But beneath the surface of this newfound harmony, a more urgent crisis was brewing. Sarah sat in the converted council chamber, now serving as a crisis management center, reviewing the latest medical reports. The numbers weren't good. Another dozen cases in the outer colonies, Dr. Venn reported, his natural features lined with worry. The genetic reversion is having unexpected effects on those who maintained their enhancements. Maya brought up a holographic display showing spreading patterns of genetic instability. It's like their bodies are fighting themselves. The enhanced systems are becoming more aggressive, trying to force out the natural genetic code, but the pulse awakened. And the ones who fully reverted? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer from the data streaming across her screens. Stable, but struggling to adapt, Maya answered. Generations of enhancement left them without basic genetic resilience. They're having to relearn how to fight off simple infections. A commotion at the chamber entrance drew their attention. Former Councillor Vextra, now showing his natural Axiom features, hurried in with a group of both enhanced and natural citizens. It's happening in the agricultural sectors now, he announced, his natural voice still strange to hear. The enhanced crop systems are failing. They're rejecting the genetic modifications we use to control growth patterns. Sarah studied the new data. The Axiom's pursuit of perfection hadn't stopped with their own species. They'd modified everything from food crops to atmospheric processors. Now, with the pulse's effects spreading through all genetic systems, their entire infrastructure was at risk. We need to call an emergency assembly, she decided. Enhanced and natural representatives from all colonies. It's time everyone understood what we're really facing. Hours later, the chamber was packed with a striking mix of citizens. Enhanced Axiom, their systems struggling to maintain perfection, sat beside their natural counterparts. The tension was palpable. The situation is severe, Sarah began, standing before the gathered crowd. The pulse didn't just affect our bodies, it's affecting everything we modified. Our food supply, our environment, even the symbiotic systems we use to terraform colonies. She gestured and massive holograms filled the air, showing the spreading instability. The enhanced among you are experiencing genetic rejection because your systems are fighting a war against your own natural code, and the reverted are struggling because centuries of enhancement left us dependent on artificial systems. Then the answer is clear. An enhanced representative stood, his perfect features marred by visible strain. We must develop new enhancements, stronger ones. That's what got us here. A natural citizen shouted back. More modifications, more control, more perfection. It's killing us. The chamber erupted in argument, but Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Despite their differences, enhanced and natural citizens were sitting in mixed groups, helping each other. When an enhanced citizen's systems glitched, natural allies supported them. When a reverted citizen struggled with environmental controls, enhanced friends adjusted settings to help. Listen, Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. Look around you. Right now, in this chamber, you're already doing what needs to be done. You're working together. The room fell silent as she continued. The enhanced among you have knowledge and capabilities we desperately need. The natural have genetic diversity and adaptability that could save our species. We don't need to choose between perfection and imperfection. We need both. Dr. Venn stepped forward, displaying new genetic models. Commander Chen is right. We've been analyzing the most stable cases among both enhanced and natural citizens. The answer isn't elimination of either group, it's synthesis. What are you suggesting? Vexra asked, leaning forward with interest. A new kind of enhancement, Maya explained, highlighting specific genetic sequences. Not one that overrides natural genetics, but one that works with them. Voluntary modifications that enhance natural capabilities without suppressing genetic diversity. It would require completely rebuilding our medical technology, an enhanced doctor observed. All our current systems are designed for forced optimization. Then we rebuild them, a natural engineer responded. Together. Sarah watched as understanding spread through the chamber. The solution wasn't choosing between enhanced or natural, it was finding a way to be both. There's more, she announced, bringing up images of the failing agricultural systems. We need to apply this same principle to everything we modified. No more forced control. We need to develop systems that work with nature, not against it. It won't be easy, Vextra warned. Centuries of infrastructure built on the assumption of perfect control. Since when do humans or Axiom choose paths because they're easy? Sarah smiled. Besides, we have something now that we didn't have before, each other. The chamber hummed with new energy as enhanced and natural citizens began forming working groups, sharing knowledge and experiences. Sarah watched as former enemies became partners, each bringing their unique strengths to solve their shared crisis. Maya appeared at her side, grinning. You know, for someone supposedly representing Earth's interests, you've become quite invested in Axiom problems. Earth's interests are Axiom interests, Sarah replied. We're all in this together, perfect, imperfect, and everything in between. As the chamber buzzed with activity, Sarah received an urgent message from Earth Command. Opening it, she couldn't help but laugh. What is it? Maya asked. Earth is sending scientists and medical teams to help, Sarah explained. Apparently, the Assembly voted to fast-track both Earth and the reformed Axiom Empire for full membership. Something about us demonstrating unprecedented cooperation in crisis. Unprecedented cooperation. Maya looked around at the mixed groups working together. I suppose that's one way to put it. Maybe that's the real perfection, Sarah mused. Not in eliminating flaws, but in learning to turn them into strengths. Together. Above them, through the crystal dome, the sun set on another day of change. The light caught both enhanced and natural features, creating a symphony of reflection and shadow that reminded everyone present, true beauty lies not in perfection, but in the endless possibilities that come from embracing all forms of existence. 3 months after the genetic revolution began, the Axiom capital had become a living laboratory of cooperation and adaptation. The once sterile streets now bloomed with both enhanced and natural plant life, symbolic of the new balance being forged between perfection and nature. Sarah stood in the newly established Synthesis Center, watching as teams of enhanced and natural scientists worked together on the next generation of adaptive technology. Dr. Ven's latest breakthrough was being tested, a neural interface that could be accepted by natural genetics while providing enhanced capabilities. The preliminary results are promising, Maya reported, showing Sarah the latest data. The interface adapts to each individual's genetic structure instead of forcing standardization. It's not perfect, but... Perfect is overrated, Sarah grinned. How are the agricultural reclamation projects going? Before Maya could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights flashed as security protocols activated automatically. Multiple orbital contacts. A technician shouted. Ships dropping out of hyperspace. It's the outer circle. Sarah's blood ran cold. The outer circle, the most extreme enhancement zealots who had fled after the pulse, taking with them dangerous technology and fanatical beliefs in forced perfection. How many ships? She demanded. 15 capital ships, Vexra answered, rushing into the command center. His natural features showed genuine fear. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. A hologram materialized in the center of the room, showing a figure that made even Vexra gasp. Supreme Enhancer Xar stood before them, his body so modified it barely looked organic. Crystalline structures had replaced most of his flesh, and his voice resonated with artificial harmonics that hurt to hear. "Fallen ones," he addressed them, "your contamination ends today. The outer circle has spent these months perfecting what you abandoned. Through total synthesis with our technology, we have achieved true perfection." Total synthesis. Dr. Venn whispered, horrified. "They've completely merged with their enhancements. There's no genetic material left to revert." "Your primitive attempt at balance is an affront to evolution," Sa continued. "You will submit to optimization, or you will be purged. You have 1 hour to decide." The hologram vanished, leaving stunned silence in its wake. "Can we fight them?" Sarah asked Vexra. "Their ships are enhanced with the same technology they used on themselves," he replied grimly. "Our defensive systems were designed by the same engineers. They'll know every weakness." "Then we don't fight their way," Sarah decided. "Maya, how's that modified pulse generator coming along?" Maya's eyes widened. "The prototype is ready, but it's not tested, and against total synthesis, there's no genetic material left to affect." "No," Sarah smiled slowly, "but they're still using our basic technology. And if there's one thing humans know how to do, it's turn strengths into weaknesses." The next hour was a blur of activity. While the outer circle ships hung in orbit like artificial stars, teams of enhanced and natural citizens worked frantically to modify the pulse generator. Sarah coordinated with Earth Command, who promised support ships were en route, though everyone knew they wouldn't arrive in time. "It's ready," Maya announced with minutes to spare. "But Sarah, this is different from the first pulse. The power requirements. Someone has to be in the transmission chamber to manually maintain the frequency." "I know," Sarah said quietly. "That's why I'm doing it." Protests erupted immediately, but Sarah held up her hand. "I'm the only one whose genetics won't be affected by the feedback, and we need both enhanced and natural axiom working together to coordinate the ground systems." "It's suicide," Vextra argued. "Maybe," Sarah smiled, "but humans have a long history of doing the impossible when it matters most." The hour deadline expired, and Sa's hologram reappeared. "Your time is up. Submit to." "Actually," Sarah interrupted, "we have a counter-proposal." She nodded to Maya, who activated the modified pulse generator. The chamber hummed with power as Sarah stepped inside, connecting herself to the transmission systems. "You forgot something important about perfection," she told Sa as energy began coursing through her. "It's rigid, unchanging, and that makes it fragile." The pulse fired, but this time it wasn't carrying genetic information. Instead, it transmitted something uniquely human: chaos. Random patterns, unpredictable frequencies, the mathematical equivalent of evolution itself. The effect on the outer circle ships was instantaneous. Their perfect systems, unable to adapt to the chaotic input, began to fail. Ships designed to operate in perfect harmony found their enhancement-based technology turning against itself. "What have you done?" Sa's hologram flickered as his systems struggled to compensate. "Introduced a little humanity to your perfection," Sarah gasped, fighting to maintain consciousness as the pulse drained her strength. "Natural chaos, the one thing your perfect systems can't handle." Through blurring vision, she watched as the mighty ships of the outer circle began to fall from orbit, their crews unable to maintain control of systems that required perfect order to function. Emergency pods launched from the failing vessels, carrying survivors who would soon learn an important lesson about the value of imperfection. "Sarah," Maya's voice seemed very far away. "The feedback is too strong. You have to get out of there." But Sarah held on, channeling every bit of chaotic human unpredictability she could muster into the pulse. Above, Sa's hologram gave one final shriek of incomprehension before his perfect systems crashed completely. The last thing Sarah saw before losing consciousness was enhanced and natural axiom working together to rescue survivors from the fallen ships. In the end, she thought, That's what humanity did best, not achieving perfection, but showing others how to live without it. When she awoke days later in the medical center, she found both enhanced and natural doctors had worked together to save her life. Maya and Ven were there, along with Vextra and representatives from Earth Command. "Did it work?" she asked weakly. "Better than we could have imagined," Maya beamed. The survivors, seeing their perfect systems fail so completely, it changed everything. The outer circle is dissolving. They're asking to learn about genetic reintegration. The Assembly has officially recognized Earth and the Axiom Empire as full members, Vexera added. They're calling it the greatest example of cooperative evolution in galactic history. Sarah tried to sit up, but found herself still too weak. A natural doctor gently pushed her back down, while an enhanced one adjusted her treatment settings. Perfect cooperation. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "for a species that spent centuries pursuing perfection, you're remarkably good at adapting to imperfection." "We had a good teacher," Maya smiled. "Sometimes it takes a human to remind us that the most perfect things in the universe are the ones that can change." Outside the medical center's windows, the city gleamed in the sunlight. Enhanced spires rose alongside natural gardens, while citizens of all types worked together to build something new, not a perfect society, but a perfectly imperfect one. And in that moment, Sarah knew that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't technology or power, but the simple courage to embrace the beauty of being flawed. 1 year after the Outer Circle's defeat, the Axiom capital hosted an unprecedented event, the first Galactic Unity Summit. Representatives from across known space gathered to witness what many had deemed impossible, a society that had found strength in embracing both enhancement and natural evolution. Sarah stood at the grand podium, her dress uniform adorned with both Earth and Axiom insignias. The chamber, once a monument to artificial perfection, now celebrated diversity. Enhanced and natural plants grew along crystalline walls, while delegates of all species filled the seats, some enhanced, some natural, many somewhere in between. "A year ago," she began, "I stood in this chamber and challenged the notion of perfection. Today, I stand here to challenge something even more fundamental, the idea that progress means choosing one path over another." Holographic displays activated, showing the transformed Axiom society. Cities where enhanced technology worked in harmony with natural systems. Medical facilities where both types of healing complemented each other. Schools where children could choose their own path of development. The Synthesis Project has exceeded our wildest expectations, Dr. Ven reported, joining Sarah at the podium. His features, like many Axiom now, showed a careful balance of natural genetics and chosen enhancements. By embracing diversity rather than enforcing uniformity, we've achieved growth rates that pure enhancement never approached. Maya stepped forward, her completely natural form a striking contrast to her father's hybrid appearance. More importantly, we've eliminated the genetic instability that threatened our species. By allowing natural evolution to work alongside enhancement, we've created sustainable development paths for all citizens. Former Councillor Vexera, who had become one of their strongest advocates, activated a new set of holograms. "Our agricultural yields have doubled since implementing adaptive enhancement systems. Natural crop variants work in harmony with enhanced strains, creating resilience through diversity." The assembled delegates murmured in appreciation, but Sarah wasn't finished. "However, today isn't about showcasing our success. It's about offering a choice to the galaxy." She gestured, and the holograms shifted to show construction of massive new facilities. Earth and the Axiom Empire are jointly announcing the establishment of the Galactic Synthesis Institute, a place where any species can learn to balance natural evolution with technological enhancement. The institute will be staffed by both enhanced and natural experts, Maya explained. "Whether you seek to incorporate sustainable enhancements or to restore lost natural capabilities, our doors are open." "But most importantly," Sarah continued, "we offer something that no amount of enhancement or natural selection can provide alone: perspective. The understanding that true strength lies not in choosing between paths, but in learning to walk multiple paths at once. A delegation from the former outer circle rose. Their leader, once a supreme enhancer, now showed a careful blend of natural and enhanced features. We stand as testament to this truth. Our pursuit of absolute perfection nearly destroyed us. In embracing imperfection, we found something greater, the ability to choose our own path of evolution. Sarah watched with pride as more delegations stood, pledging support for the Institute. Species that had long viewed enhancement and natural evolution as incompatible now saw a new way forward. There will be challenges, she acknowledged. Each species, each individual, must find their own balance. But together, we've proven that the greatest achievements come not from enforcing one view of perfection, but from embracing the perfect imperfection of diversity. As she concluded her speech, a massive hologram appeared above the chamber, a real-time image of Earth and Axion ships working together to construct the Institute's orbital facilities. Natural and enhanced technologies seamlessly integrated, creating something entirely new. Later, at the celebration reception, Sarah found a quiet moment with Maya and Ven on a balcony overlooking the city. "Did you ever imagine this?" Maya asked, gesturing at the vibrant metropolis below. "When you first arrived here?" Sarah laughed. "Honestly, I was just hoping to survive my diplomatic posting. Instead, we started an evolutionary revolution." "Humans," Ven shook his head fondly. "Always making the impossible seem obvious in retrospect." "That's what we do best," Sarah smiled. "We dream big, break rules, and somehow muddle through to something better, usually by accident." Speaking of accidents, Maya grinned. "Wait until you see what the hybrid research team discovered. They found a way to incorporate quantum computing into natural neural networks without suppressing evolutionary adaptation." "More impossible things." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Always," Ven replied. "That's the beauty of embracing imperfection. There's no limit to how far we can evolve, as long as we remember to let nature and technology dance together rather than fight." As the three friends watched the sun set over their transformed world, Sarah reflected on humanity's role in the galaxy. They weren't the strongest, the smartest, or the most advanced. But perhaps there was something more important, the ones who could look at rigid perfection and see the beauty in breaking it, who could face impossible choices and choose both options, who could take division and forge unity. In the end, that was humanity's gift to the stars, not the power to achieve perfection, but the wisdom to see that imperfection, diversity, and adaptation were the truest path to evolution. As night fell and the city below lit up with both natural bioluminescence and enhanced crystals, Sarah knew that their journey was just beginning. The age of enforced perfection was over. The age of chosen diversity had begun, and somewhere out there, other species were looking at their own rigid systems of belief and thinking, perhaps there is another way. That, Sarah thought, was the most perfect ending of all, because it wasn't an ending at all, but a beginning. A beginning written not in the language of perfection, but in the endless possibilities of imperfection, choice, and change.